My name is Marcus, and this is the story of how I went from being called too weak to owning the empire that was supposed to be mine by birthright. But trust me, the ending is something I never saw coming. Growing up in Connecticut, I was always living in the shadow of my older brother, Trevor. Our father, Richard Blackwood, owned Blackwood Industries, a multi-million-dollar construction and real estate development company that had been building luxury resorts and commercial complexes across the East Coast for over 30 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Our family lived in a sprawling estate in Greenwich, complete with a tennis court, swimming pool, and a 3-car garage filled with my father's collection of luxury vehicles. From the outside, we looked like the perfect, successful family. But inside those walls was a constant tension about who would inherit the family empire. Trevor was everything my father wanted in a son, 6'2", quarterback of his high school football team, graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Business School. He had this natural charisma that made people want to follow him, and most importantly, he shared my father's ruthless business instincts. I remember family dinners where my father would quiz us about business scenarios. Trevor, if a client is threatening to pull out of $1 million project unless we reduce our price by 20%, what do you do? Find their weakness, Trevor would answer confidently. Maybe they've got a tight deadline. Maybe they've already invested too much to back out. Use that leverage to keep our price firm. My father would beam with pride. Exactly, never show weakness in negotiations. Then he'd turn to me with the same question. Marcus. I'd try to understand why they need the price reduction, I'd say. Maybe we can find efficiencies in the project design or timeline that would save costs without compromising quality. My father's expression would always darken. That's not business, Marcus, that's charity work. Me. I was the complete opposite of Trevor. I was quieter, more analytical. While Trevor was out networking at country club events, I was in my room, studying market trends and reading about innovative business strategies. I preferred solving problems with data and creativity rather than intimidation and aggressive tactics. My father made it clear from early on that Trevor was being groomed to take over the company. Every summer, Trevor got prestigious internships at major firms Goldman Sachs, McKinsey & Company, even a summer at Turner Construction. Meanwhile, I was stuck doing menial tasks at our company, filing paperwork, organizing supply closets, basically anything that kept me away from actual business operations. The inequality was obvious to everyone, including our mother, Patricia. She tried to intervene sometimes, suggesting that maybe I deserved real opportunities too. But my father's response was always the same. Patricia, the boy needs to prove himself first. Trevor has earned his opportunities. What hurt most was that I genuinely loved the construction industry. I was fascinated by the process of turning architectural drawings into actual buildings. I spent hours studying blueprints, learning about different materials and construction techniques. I even taught myself basic engineering principles and studied sustainable building practices. But none of that mattered to my father. In his mind, I was too soft, too idealistic, too concerned with things that didn't directly impact the bottom line. The breaking point came during my senior year at NU. I had just finished my bachelor's in business administration with a focus on sustainable development and innovative construction techniques. I was excited to finally prove myself and earn a real position in the family business. I remember walking into my father's mahogany-paneled office that cold December morning. The walls were lined with awards, photos of him with politicians and celebrities, and architectural models of his most successful projects. Behind his desk was a massive window overlooking the Hartford skyline, where 3 of his buildings dominated the view. He was sitting behind his massive desk, barely looking up from his laptop, typing aggressively as if each keystroke was a business decision. Dad, I wanted to talk to you about my role in the company after graduation, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He continued typing for another 30 seconds before finally looking up. his steel-gray eyes cold and calculating. "Marcus, son, I've been meaning to have this conversation with you." My heart started racing. This was it. My moment to finally be recognized. "I've been watching you these past 4 years, and I've come to a conclusion." He leaned back in his leather chair, intertwining his fingers. "You're just too weak to run this company." The words hit me like a physical blow. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. "What do you mean, weak?" "Look at you," he continued, his voice dripping with disappointment. "You're soft. You overthink everything. In this business, you need to be tough, decisive, ruthless when necessary. You spend too much time worrying about environmental impacts and employee satisfaction. This isn't a charity, Marcus. This is business." I felt my face burning with humiliation, but I pressed on. "But Dad, I have ideas. I've been studying sustainable construction methods that could save us millions and open up new markets. Sustainable construction." He laughed bitterly, the sound echoing off the wood-paneled walls. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. You're worried about saving the planet when you should be worried about saving this company from your bleeding heart nonsense." He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the construction site of his latest project. A 40-story luxury condominium complex. Trevor understands what it takes. He's got the backbone for this industry. Last week, he convinced the Morrison Group to increase their budget by 15% just through sheer negotiation skills. "You'd probably apologize to our competitors before crushing them?" "Dad, the construction industry is changing. Clients are demanding more sustainable. Clients demand what we tell them to demand," he interrupted sharply. "That's how business works. You create the market. You don't follow it." The conversation lasted another painful 20 minutes. He systematically dismantled every idea I had, every achievement I thought mattered. My dean's list grades. Academic performance doesn't translate to business success. My internship at a green building consulting firm, a waste of time that taught you nothing about real construction. My thesis on sustainable urban development, theoretical nonsense that has no practical application. Finally, he delivered the killing blow. "I'm giving Trevor the position of Vice President of Operations. He'll be running day-to-day operations while I focus on strategic growth. There's no position for you here, Marcus. Maybe you should consider teaching or nonprofit work. Something more suited to your temperament." As I walked out of that office, I felt something die inside me. But I also felt something else awakening, a burning determination to prove him wrong. That night, I sat in my cramped Manhattan apartment, staring at my business degree and feeling completely lost. My roommate, Jake Patterson, found me there at 2 a.m., still in the same position, still wearing my suit from the meeting. "Dude, you look like someone died," he said, dropping onto our second-hand couch next to me. I told him everything. Jake listened, without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head in disgust. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You know what?" he finally said. "Maybe your dad just did you the biggest favor of your life." "How is completely crushing my dreams a favor?" "Because now you're free," Jake said, his eyes lighting up. "You don't have to play by his rules anymore. You don't have to be Trevor. You can be Marcus, and maybe Marcus is exactly what the construction industry needs." Those words stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, I started researching everything I could about starting a construction company. I spent 18 hours a day in the NYU library, reading industry publications, studying successful startup stories, and analyzing market trends. What I discovered was fascinating. The construction industry was actually hungry for innovation. Clients were increasingly interested in sustainable building practices, smart technology integration, and cost-effective solutions that didn't sacrifice quality. But most construction companies were still operating with decades-old business models. I found case studies of companies that had revolutionized their industries by focusing on what everyone else was ignoring. Netflix beating Blockbuster by embracing streaming. Tesla is disrupting the auto industry with electric vehicles. Airbnb is changing hospitality by leveraging technology. The construction industry was ripe for disruption, but it needed someone who understood both the technical aspects and the changing market demands. Someone who could bridge the gap between traditional construction methods and innovative approaches. My father's traditional approach, while successful, was becoming outdated. He was still building the same way companies had been building for decades, ignoring emerging trends and technologies that could revolutionize the industry. I started developing a business plan for something completely different. Instead of focusing on massive luxury projects like my father, I would target the growing market of eco-conscious businesses and organizations that wanted cutting-edge, sustainable buildings. The numbers were compelling. The green building market was projected to grow by 13% annually over the next 5 years. Millennials, who were increasingly moving into decision-making roles, prioritized environmental responsibility. Government incentives for sustainable construction were becoming more attractive. I researched my competition and found that most construction companies were either huge corporations that moved slowly and charged premium prices, or small contractors who lacked the expertise to handle complex, sustainable projects. There was a gap in the market for a company that could combine innovative approaches with personalized service. I spent 2 months creating a comprehensive business plan. I outlined my target market, competitive advantages, financial projections, and operational strategies. I researched suppliers of sustainable materials, studied certification processes for green buildings, and even took online courses in project management and construction technology. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The more I researched, the more excited I became. This wasn't just about proving my father wrong. This was about building something that could genuinely make a difference. But having a business plan and actually starting a business were two different things. I needed capital, equipment, licenses, insurance, and most importantly, I needed clients who would trust a 22-year-old with no track record. I started networking at industry events, introducing myself to potential clients and suppliers. Most people were polite but dismissive. I was clearly young and inexperienced, and the construction industry has never been known for embracing change quickly, but I kept pushing. I attended green building conferences, sustainability seminars, and small business workshops. I joined online forums for construction professionals and started contributing insights about sustainable building practices. Slowly, I began to build a network of contacts who shared my vision for more innovative construction approaches. These weren't necessarily people who could hire me immediately, but they were people who understood what I was trying to accomplish. I wasn't too weak for this industry. I was exactly what it needed. Starting Phoenix Construction wasn't easy. I had graduation money saved up, about $15,000, and I managed to get a small business loan for another $35,000. $50,000 might sound like a lot, but in the construction industry, it's barely enough to buy a decent truck. Rented a tiny office space in a strip mall in Hartford, nothing like my father's prestigious downtown headquarters. My office was 400 square feet, sandwiched between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. My staff consisted of me, my laptop, a folding table from IKEA, and a lot of determination. The first few months were brutal. I woke up at 5 a.m. every day, spending the morning cold calling potential clients and the afternoon sending out proposals. I attended every networking event I could afford, which wasn't many. A Chamber of Commerce breakfast cost $30, which was significant when you're living on ramen noodles and trying to build a business. Most people wouldn't even take meetings with me. "You're how old?" was a common response. "And you've built how many buildings?" was usually the follow-up that ended the conversation. I was a 22-year-old kid with no track record, competing against established companies with decades of experience. My father's company had been building their reputation for 30 years. I was starting from absolute zero, but I had something they didn't. I actually listened to what clients wanted. I remember one particularly discouraging day in March. I had been rejected by 12 potential clients in a row. I was sitting in a coffee shop on Main Street, updating my spreadsheet of rejections, when I overheard a conversation at the next table. Two women were discussing construction projects. One was complaining about how construction companies kept giving her the same cookie-cutter proposals for her veterinary clinic renovation. They all want to do the same boring thing, she was saying. I want something that reflects my values, sustainable materials, energy-efficient systems, maybe some innovative design elements that would make the space more comfortable for the animals. But they all just want to build another generic office building. Her friend nodded sympathetically. It's like they're not even listening to what you're actually asking for. I couldn't help myself. My heart was racing, but I turned around and introduced myself. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. But I couldn't help overhearing. I'm Marcus Blackwood, and I run a construction company that specializes in exactly what you're describing. The woman, Dr. Sarah Chen, looked skeptical, but agreed to let me buy her coffee and hear my pitch. I spent the next hour explaining my approach to sustainable construction, showing her photos of innovative veterinary clinics I'd researched, and discussing how we could create a space that would be both environmentally responsible and optimally designed for animal care. Most contractors see a renovation as a chance to use their standard materials and methods, I explained. But every project should be unique, designed specifically for how you plan to use the space. Dr. Chen was intrigued. Me visit her current clinic and develop a proposal. I spent the next week living and breathing that project. I researched the latest in veterinary clinic design, studied air circulation systems that would be optimal for animal health, and sourced sustainable materials that would be both durable and cost-effective. My proposal wasn't just about construction. It was about creating a space that would improve her business operations while reflecting her values. I included details about energy savings, maintenance costs, and even how the improved layout would allow her to see more patients efficiently. Dr. Sarah Chen became my first client. She wanted to renovate her veterinary clinic using sustainable materials and energy-efficient systems. It was a $150,000 project, not huge, but enough to get me started and prove that my approach could work. I threw everything I had into that project. I sourced recycled materials from 3 different suppliers, spent weeks researching the most efficient HVAC systems, installed solar panels, created a rainwater collection system, and designed spaces that were both functional and beautiful. Project was challenging in ways I hadn't expected. I was learning on the job, making mistakes, and fixing them. There were days when I worked 18 hours straight trying to solve problems that more experienced contractors would have anticipated, but I was also learning skills that would be invaluable later. I developed relationships with suppliers who specialized in sustainable materials. I learned to manage subcontractors who weren't used to working with eco-friendly approaches. Most importantly, I learned to solve problems creatively when traditional methods weren't sufficient. The project came in on time and under budget. But more importantly, Dr. Chen was thrilled with the results. The clinic was more efficient, more comfortable for both animals and staff. And the energy savings were even better than projected. More importantly, Dr. Chen started recommending me to her network of environmentally conscious business owners. Word spread quickly in that community. Here was a young contractor who actually understood what they wanted and could deliver results. Within 6 months, I had completed 5 projects and had a waiting list of potential clients. I hired my first employee, a carpenter named Mike Rodriguez, who shared my passion for quality craftsmanship and sustainable practices. Mike was exactly what I needed. He had 15 years of experience in traditional construction but was frustrated by the industry's resistance to change. He brought technical expertise while embracing the innovative approaches I was developing. Working with you is like remembering why I got into construction in the first place, Mike told me during his 3rd week. Most contractors have forgotten that we're creating spaces where people spend their lives. It shouldn't matter how we do it. By the end of my first year, Phoenix Construction had generated $800,000 in revenue and completed 12 projects. We were still small, but we were growing fast, and more importantly, we're building a reputation for quality and innovation. Success in the construction industry doesn't go unnoticed, especially in Connecticut where everyone knows everyone. By my 2nd year, word had reached my father about my little construction company. At first, he was dismissive. I heard through industry contacts that he was telling people I was playing at being a contractor and that I'd be back begging for a job within a year. Marcus is learning the hard way that business isn't about good intentions. He reportedly said at a Connecticut Builders Association meeting. But as Phoenix Construction continued to grow, his attitude began to change. We started bidding on larger projects, office buildings, retail spaces, even small residential developments. And we weren't just participating, we were winning. Our breakthrough came with a project for Greentech Solutions, a rapidly growing renewable energy company. They wanted a new headquarters that would showcase their commitment to sustainability. The project was worth $2.8 million, the largest in Phoenix. Construction's history? I knew this was make or break time. We were competing against 5 other companies, including 2 major regional contractors. I spent 3 weeks preparing the proposal, working with architects and engineers to design something truly innovative. The building I proposed wasn't just environmentally friendly. It was a showcase of what modern, sustainable construction could achieve. Net zero energy usage through solar panels and geothermal systems, rainwater collection, and greywater recycling. Materials sourced from within 100 miles to reduce transportation emissions. Even the landscaping was designed to support local wildlife and manage stormwater naturally. But the real innovation was in the design itself. Instead of creating a typical office building, I proposed a space that would inspire creativity and collaboration. Open floor plans with natural lighting, indoor gardens, flexible workspaces that could be reconfigured as the company grew. The financial projections were compelling too. While the initial construction cost was 8% higher than traditional methods, the long-term savings from energy efficiency and lower maintenance costs would save Greentech over $200,000 annually. Blackwood Industries also bid on the project. Their proposal was professional and competent, a traditional office building with some token green features thrown in to meet the minimum requirements. It was exactly what the industry expected from an established company. The presentation day was intense. I walked into Greentech's conference room with my team, myself, Mike, and 2 of our subcontractors. We were facing the company's entire leadership team, including CEO David Morrison, former tech executive who had started the company after selling his previous business for $50 million. I gave a presentation about my life. I walked them through 3D renderings of the building, explained how each system would work, and demonstrated the long-term financial benefits. I showed them examples of our previous work and testimonials from satisfied clients. Most importantly, I connected the building, designed to Greentech's mission. This isn't just your headquarters, I told them. This is a statement about who you are as a company. Every client who visits, every employee who works here, every person who drives by will see your commitment to innovation and sustainability. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then David Morrison started asking questions, technical questions that showed he understood exactly what we were proposing. How do you ensure the geothermal system will maintain consistent temperatures year-round, he asked. What's the payback period on the solar panel investment? How will you handle the integration of smart building systems with our existing IT infrastructure? I answered every question confidently, drawing on the research I'd done and the expertise of my team. After an hour of discussion, Morrison thanked us and said they'd make a decision within a week. 3 days later, I got the call that changed everything. Marcus, this is David Morrison from Greentech Solutions. I wanted to let you know that your proposal was exactly what we were looking for. You didn't just design a building, you designed a statement about who we are as a company. We had won the contract. The Greentech project put Phoenix Construction on the map in a way I had never imagined. We completed it 6 weeks early and $200,000 under budget, while incorporating innovations that saved Greentech thousands of dollars in annual operating costs. But more importantly, the project attracted attention from the industry press. Construction Today magazine featured us on their cover with the headline, "The Future of Construction: How Young Innovators Are Revolutionizing the Industry." The article detailed our approach to sustainable construction and profiled me as part of a new generation of contractors who were changing the industry. Suddenly, I was getting calls from potential clients across New England. That's when my father finally started taking me seriously. He was not happy. The first sign came when I started hearing rumors about Blackwood Industries' reaction to our success. Former employees who had left to work for other companies told me that my father was furious about the magazine article and was telling people that I was getting lucky with a few small projects. But I could see the truth in the numbers. Phoenix Construction's revenue had doubled in 6 months. We were getting inquiries from major corporations, government agencies, and institutional clients. We had grown from a team of 5 to a team of 15. I was actively recruiting top talent from established companies. The construction industry was taking notice. So was my father. The son he had dismissed as too weak was becoming a legitimate competitor. And that's when the real war began. The first sign that my father was taking me seriously came in the form of a phone call from one of my clients, Rebecca Martinez, who owned a chain of organic restaurants, called me on a Tuesday afternoon. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something strange that happened today," she said, her voice tense. "What's going on?" "I got a call from someone at Blackwood Industries. They offered to buy out my contract with Phoenix Construction and complete the project for 30% less than what we agreed on." My blood ran cold. "What did you tell them?" "I told them I was happy with Phoenix Construction and wasn't interested. But Marcus, they knew details about our project that I haven't shared with anyone outside your company." This was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, I discovered that my father was waging a systematic campaign against my business. He was underbidding on projects specifically to prevent me from getting them, even if it meant taking a loss. He was spreading rumors about Phoenix Construction's reliability, my inexperience. The most painful part was when he started targeting my employees. Mike Rodriguez, my first hire and one of my most trusted team members, came to me looking uncomfortable. "Boss, I need to tell you something," Mike said. "I got a call from someone at Blackwood Industries. They offered me a job with a 40% pay increase and full benefits. Are you taking it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "No," Mike said. "Firmly. But I thought you should know they're trying to poach your entire team." This was my father's strategy. If he couldn't beat me with superior projects, he'd try to destroy my company from within. He was using the Blackwood Industries reputation and resources to systematically dismantle everything I had built. But he underestimated me. Every attack made me more determined. I started offering equity shares to key employees, creating a loyalty program that Blackwood Industries couldn't match. I doubled down on innovation, developing new construction techniques that set us apart. From traditional contractors, most importantly, I started documenting everything. Every attempt to poach employees, every suspicious underbid, every rumor I could trace back to Blackwood Industries. I was building a case, though I wasn't sure. Would I do with it yet? The opportunity I'd been waiting for came from an unexpected source. Thomas Hartwell, the CEO of Hartwell Development Group, called me personally on a Thursday morning. "Marcus, I have a proposition for you," he said. "I know about the situation with your father, and I think it's time someone taught Richard Blackwood a lesson about underestimating people." Hartwell Development was one of the biggest real estate developers on the East Coast. They had a project that could change everything, a massive mixed-use development in downtown Hartford that would include office spaces, residential units, retail areas, and a hotel. The total construction value was $85 million. "Why would you want to work with Phoenix Construction?" I asked. "This is 10 times bigger than anything we've ever done, because I've been watching your work," Hartwell said. "You're innovative, you're reliable, and you actually care about quality. Plus, I've been dealing with your father for 20 years, and frankly, I'm tired of his arrogance." He explained that Blackwood Industries had been the presumptive contractor for the project, but their proposal was uninspired and overpriced. "Your father thinks he has this locked up because of our history. He's gotten lazy and complacent. This was my chance. I assembled a team of the best architects, engineers, and designers I could find. We worked around the clock for 3 weeks, creating a proposal that was unlike anything the industry had seen before. We didn't just design buildings, we designed a community. Smart technology integrated throughout, sustainable systems that would make the development carbon neutral. Innovative design elements that would make the project a destination, not just a place to work and live. The presentation day arrived. I walked into the Hartwell Development Conference Room wearing my best suit, carrying a proposal that represented everything Phoenix Construction had learned over the past 3 years. My father was already there. Of course, he looked shocked. "To see me? What is he doing here?" he asked Hartwell. "Meet your competition," Hartwell said with a slight smile. I gave a presentation about my life. I showed them 3D models, cost breakdowns, timeline projections, and environmental impact studies. I demonstrated how our approach would save money in the long term while creating a more valuable and attractive development. When I finished, the room was silent, and Hartwell started asking questions. Technical questions that showed he understood exactly what we were proposing. My father's presentation was next. It was professional, competent, and completely traditional. Everything the industry expected from Blackwood Industries, but nothing that would set the project apart. 3 days later, I got the call. Phoenix Construction had won the contract for the Hartford Commons project. The Hartford Commons project transformed Phoenix Construction overnight. We went from a small company with 15 employees to a major player. With 95 employees and partnerships with top-tier subcontractors across New England, but managing an $85 million project was unlike anything I had ever experienced. The complexity was staggering, coordinating dozens of subcontractors, managing supply chains for thousands of different materials, ensuring quality control across multiple simultaneous construction phases, and maintaining strict timelines. While dealing with weather delays, permit issues, and countless unexpected challenges, there were moments when I questioned whether my father had been right about my abilities. 3 months into the project, we discovered that the soil conditions were different than anticipated, requiring additional foundation work that would cost $2.8 million and potentially delay the timeline by 6 weeks. I remember sitting in my trailer on the construction site at 2 a.m., staring at engineering reports and trying to figure out how to solve the problem without destroying our budget or timeline. This was the kind of crisis that could bankrupt a company if handled incorrectly. But instead of panicking, I drew on everything I had learned about innovative problem solving. I brought together our engineering team, our foundation subcontractors, and even consulted with experts from MIT about alternative foundation methods. We developed a solution using a new type of micropile foundation system that was faster to install and actually stronger than traditional methods. The innovation not only solved our immediate problem, but created a technique that we would use on future projects. More importantly, completing that crisis successfully gave our entire team confidence that we could handle anything the project threw at us. The Hartford Commons project became a showcase for everything Phoenix Construction represented. We implemented building management systems that reduced energy consumption by 47% compared to similar developments. We used recycled and sustainable materials for 73% of the construction. We created public spaces that became gathering points for the community, but we also proved that innovation and sustainability could be profitable. The project came in $3.2 million under budget and was completed 2 months ahead of schedule. The efficiency gains from our construction methods and the long-term savings from our sustainable systems made Hartford Commons one of the most profitable developments in Hartwell's portfolio. The industry took notice in a way that completely changed Phoenix Construction's position in the market. We were featured on the cover of Construction Management magazine with the headline "David versus Goliath: How Phoenix Construction Beat Industry Giants for Hartford's Biggest Project." Architecture firms started reaching out to us, wanting to partner on innovative projects. Major corporations began requesting proposals for their construction needs. Government agencies invited us to bid on public projects. Within 6 months of completing Hartford Commons, our project pipeline had grown to over $200 million in potential contracts. More importantly, our reputation for quality and innovation was attracting the best talent in the industry. We were hiring project managers from major construction companies, engineers from top firms, and skilled craftsmen who wanted to work on cutting-edge projects. Many of our new hires were people who had left Blackwood Industries because they wanted to work on more innovative projects and be part of a company culture that valued creativity and problem-solving over intimidation and rigid hierarchy. Meanwhile, my father's company was struggling in ways that became increasingly visible throughout the industry. His traditional approach was becoming outdated as more clients demanded sustainable construction and innovative design solutions. His reputation for being difficult to work with was finally catching up with him as younger decision-makers and client companies prioritized collaborative partnerships over established relationships. Several major clients had switched to competitors, and Blackwood Industries was losing market share rapidly. I heard through industry contacts that they had been forced to lay off 30% of their workforce and had lost several key executives to other companies. The irony wasn't lost on me. The son he'd called too weak was now leading a company that was outperforming the business he'd spent decades building. But the final blow came when I learned that Blackwood Industries was in serious financial trouble. Years of underbidding to compete with Phoenix Construction, combined with several failed projects and cost overruns on traditional contracts, left them severely cash-strapped. That's when I received an unexpected call from my father's business partner and CFO, Gerald Thornton. Gerald had been my father's right-hand man for 15 years, and he was one of the few people who knew the true state of Blackwood Industries' finances. "Marcus, I need to speak with you about something confidential," he said over the phone. "Can we meet for coffee?" We met at a small cafe in West Hartford, away from industry crowds where we might be recognized. Gerald looked exhausted, carrying the weight of knowledge that could destroy the company he had helped build. "Your father is too proud to admit it," Gerald said, stirring his coffee nervously, "but the company is in serious trouble. We need a cash infusion or a buyout partner, or we're going to have to declare bankruptcy within 6 months. "How bad is it?" I asked, though I suspected I already knew. "We're burning through cash reserves to cover operating expenses. 3 major projects have gone over budget by more than 20%. We've got $18 million in outstanding receivables from clients who are disputing our work quality, and the bank is threatening to call on our line of credit." Gerald pulled out a folder containing financial statements that painted a devastating picture. Decades of my father's prideful decision-making had left the company vulnerable, and the recent competition with Phoenix Construction had been the final straw. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you're the only person I know who has both the resources and the motivation to save what your father built," Gerald said. "Despite everything that's happened, this company was meant to be yours someday. Your father may have been wrong about how to prepare you for it, but he wasn't wrong about your potential." I spent the next week analyzing Blackwood Industries' financial records with a team of accountants and business analysts. The situation was worse than Gerald had described, but I could also see the potential. Blackwood Industries had valuable assets, prime real estate for their headquarters and equipment yards, established client relationships that could be rebuilt, and a reputation for quality work that had been damaged but not destroyed, combined with Phoenix Construction's innovation and growth trajectory. We could create something unprecedented in the regional construction market. More importantly, I realized that acquiring Blackwood Industries would give me the opportunity to do something my father had never considered: create a construction company that combined the best of traditional expertise with cutting-edge innovation. I made the decision that would change everything. I was going to buy out my father's company. The negotiation process was surreal and emotionally complex in ways I hadn't anticipated. Here I was, the son who had been deemed too weak to run the family business, sitting across from my father as he was forced to sell that business to me. The first meeting took place in the conference room of Gerald Thornton's accounting firm. Neutral territory that allowed both sides to maintain some dignity. My father arrived with his lawyer and what remained of his executive team. I came with my legal counsel and financial advisors. My father looked older than I remembered, his hair more gray, his face showing the stress of the past few months. But his posture was still defiant, his jaw set in the stubborn expression I remembered from childhood. "Max," he said as we sat down, "I want you to understand that this is a temporary setback. Blackwood Industries has weathered difficult times." "Before, Dad," I replied carefully, "Gerald has shown me the financial statements. This isn't a temporary setback. This is a fundamental business crisis that requires immediate action. The negotiations were painful for both of us. Every discussion about asset valuations, employee transitions, and debt assumptions was also a conversation about our relationship and the choices that had led us to this moment. My father fought for every detail, trying to maintain control even as he was forced to surrender it. He insisted on keeping certain long-term contracts, wanted to retain decision-making authority over specific projects, and demanded that the Blackwood name be preserved in some form. "This company is my legacy," he said during one particularly tense session. "I built it from nothing, and I won't watch it be dismantled by someone who doesn't understand what it took to create it." "I'm not planning to dismantle it," I responded. "I'm planning to save it. That means making changes you've been unwilling to make." The financial terms were complex but ultimately fair. Phoenix Construction would acquire Blackwood Industries' assets, assume responsibility for completing their existing contracts, and retain most of their employees. In exchange, my father would receive $12.8 million in cash and equity, plus a consulting agreement that would allow him to remain involved in the company's operations. But the most difficult part wasn't the financial negotiations, it was the emotional reckoning between a father and son who had spent years seeing each other as adversaries. During one break in the negotiations, my father and I found ourselves alone in the conference room. For the first time in years, we weren't discussing business strategies or debating construction methods. We were just two men trying to understand how we had arrived at this moment. "Because," he said quietly, "I want you to know that I'm proud of what you've built." It was the first time he had ever said those words to me, and hearing them felt both validating and heartbreaking. "But I need to ask you something," he continued. "What are you going to do with Blackwood Industries? Are you going to destroy it out of revenge?" I looked at the man who had shaped my life through his rejection and criticism, who had driven me to prove myself in ways I never could have imagined. "Dad, I'm going to do what you never thought I could do. I'm going to make it stronger." Acquisition was completed on a Tuesday morning in November. Phoenix Construction officially purchased Blackwood Industries for $12.8 million, creating Phoenix Blackwood Construction one of the largest construction companies in New England. Integration process was challenging but ultimately successful. I kept most of Blackwood's employees, including several project managers and engineers who brought valuable experience to our team. I also retained Gerald Thornton as our new CFO, recognizing that his financial expertise and institutional knowledge would be crucial for managing our expanded operations. Offered my father a position as a senior consultant, partly out of respect for his experience, partly because I wanted him to see what the company could become under different leadership. The new Phoenix Blackwood Construction combined the innovation and agility of a growing company with the experience and resources of an established firm. We could now compete for projects of any size while maintaining our commitment to sustainable construction and innovative design. But more importantly, the acquisition gave me the opportunity to create the kind of company I had always envisioned. One that valued both profitability and responsibility, that combined traditional craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, that treated employees as partners rather than resources. Within 6 months of the acquisition, Phoenix Blackwood Construction had landed contracts worth over $150 million, including a major government project to build sustainable housing for veterans and a partnership with a tech company to construct the most energy-efficient office building in New England. The industry press hailed the acquisition as a masterclass in strategic growth. It featured me on the cover of Business Week with the headline, "The Sun Also Rises: How Marcus Blackwood Built an Empire His Father Couldn't." But the real victory wasn't the financial success or the industry recognition. It was the knowledge that I had proven my father wrong about what strength meant in business, while also proving that success didn't require sacrificing your values or your humanity. 3 months after the acquisition, I was going through my father's old office files when I found something that changed everything I thought I knew about our family and the events that had led to this moment. My father's office had been preserved exactly as he left it. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls lined with awards and photos from 30 years in the construction industry, I was looking for client files and project documents when I discovered a locked filing cabinet in the corner that Greld hadn't mentioned during the asset inventory. The cabinet was old and heavy, clearly personal rather than business equipment. When I finally got it open, I found folders labeled with dates going back several years. Most contained personal documents, tax returns, insurance policies, medical records, but hidden in the back was a folder labeled Personal Confidential that contained documents that made my hands shake as I read them. The first document was a medical report dated 5 years earlier, right around the time my father's behavior had become increasingly erratic and demanding. The letterhead was from Hartford Hospital's neurology department, and the diagnosis was devastating. Early-stage Alzheimer's disease. The report detailed cognitive testing results, brain imaging scans, and a prognosis that explained so much about the man my father had become in recent years. The aggressive business tactics, the harsh treatment of employees, the refusal to adapt to new industry trends, the increasingly rigid thinking. It wasn't just pride and stubbornness. It was a man desperately trying to maintain control as his cognitive abilities declined. But the most heartbreaking discovery was a series of letters he had written but never sent. They were addressed to me, to Trevor, to our mother, and to various employees. One was dated just 2 weeks before our confrontation in his office. Marcus, I know I've been hard on you, harder than I should have been. The truth is, I see myself in you, not the aggressive businessman everyone expects, but the thoughtful, analytical person I used to be before this industry hardened me. I'm afraid that by the time you're ready to take over, I won't be the father you deserve to learn from. The doctors say my condition will progress, and I can already feel my judgment becoming clouded. Maybe it's better if you find your own path, build your own success, rather than inheriting a legacy from a man who may not remember why he built it. You're not too weak, son. You're everything I wish I had remained. Another letter dated 6 months later revealed even more. I watch you building Phoenix Construction, and I'm amazed by your innovation and integrity. Every instinct tells me to support you, to help you succeed, but I'm terrified that my involvement will only hold you back. My mind isn't what it was, and I'm making decisions based on fear rather than wisdom. The cruel things I've said, the obstacles I've put in your way, they come from a place of panic, not strength. I'm fighting to preserve something I've already lost, while you're building something I never had the courage to attempt. There were medical appointments documented in a calendar, medications prescribed to slow cognitive decline, and notes from consultations with specialists about how to manage a degenerative condition while running a complex business. The most devastating revelation was in a letter to Gerald Thornton. I need you to watch the company's finances carefully. I'm making decisions that don't make sense anymore, but I can't seem to stop myself. If I'm driving Blackwood Industries toward disaster, you need to find a way to save it, even if that means going around me. Suddenly everything made sense. The underbidding that was destroying his company's profitability, the aggressive tactics that were alienating long-term clients, the refusal to embrace innovation that was causing him to lose market share. These weren't the calculated decisions of a ruthless businessman. They were the confused actions of a man whose ability to think strategically was being stolen by disease. I sat in that office for 3 hours, reading and rereading those documents, trying to process the implications of what I had discovered. The father who had called me too weak hadn't been protecting his business from my supposed inadequacies. He had been protecting me from his own declining capabilities. The war between our companies hadn't been about business philosophy or family dynamics. It was about a father who loved his son enough to push him away rather than risk destroying his future with poor judgment and failing leadership. For 5 years, my father had been fighting 2 battles simultaneously, trying to maintain his companies success, while his mind betrayed him, and trying to prepare his sons for a future he might not be mentally present to guide them through. The cruelest irony was that his attempt to push me away had actually been the greatest gift he could have given me. By forcing me to build my own success, he had ensured that I would be strong enough to eventually save what he had built, even from himself. His cognitive abilities declined. The most heartbreaking discovery was a letter he had written to me but never sent. It was dated just 2 weeks before our confrontation in his office. Marcus, I know I've been hard on you, harder than I should have been. The truth is, I see myself in you, not the aggressive businessman everyone expects, but the thoughtful, analytical person I used to be before this industry hardened me. I'm afraid that by the time you're ready to take over, I won't be the father you deserve to learn from. Maybe it's better if you find your own path. You're not too weak, son. You're everything I wish I had remained. Today, Phoenix Blackwood Construction is one of the most successful construction companies in New England. We've completed over 200 projects, won numerous awards, and most importantly, we've changed how the industry thinks about sustainable construction. But my real victory wasn't buying out my father's company or proving him wrong about my strength. It was understanding that strength comes in many forms, that sometimes what looks like weakness is actually the foundation for something much more powerful. My father spent his final years working alongside me, watching as the company he built transformed into something he never could have imagined. And in those quiet moments between meetings, I got to know the man behind the harsh exterior, a father who had been fighting his own battles and trying to prepare his son for a world he thought would be too harsh for someone with a gentle heart. The construction industry did need someone tough enough to survive it, but it also needed someone caring enough to change it. Sometimes the person everyone thinks is too weak is exactly the person, strong enough to build something better. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.